What's up guys, welcome back to another tutorial by PC Tech Gamer, and today we are going to talk about animations, animating our player. So I'm on GameArt2D.com where I'm going to go to freebies and I'm going to get some free assets here. So pick any one of these you want. I'm going to go with the cat and dog and I'm going to download it. I'm going to find that in my downloads folder and I'm just going to use dog. So whichever one you downloaded, you just want to grab that folder and drag it over to the files over here on the left hand side. I'm in a blank project that I just started with an empty scene and I've just dragged over my animations, my character. We're going to start by adding a root node. And today's root node is going to be an area 2D. So search area up top and it should come up here, double click it. That'll add it to the scene. Let's double click that, rename it to player. And then it's showing a warning. It says this node has no shape, so it can't collide. So we will fix that in a minute. But first of all, we are going to add a sprite. And we're going to add the animated sprite this time. Animated sprite 2D. Double click that or click enter. Add that one. That one is screaming at us as well. It wants the frame resource. So with that one highlighted, we come over here to the right under animation. Sprite frames empty currently. And we wanted to just click on that and click new sprite frames. We're going to add a new sprite frame. That gives us an empty sprite frame, which we now need to click on once again to open up our animation frames. And we're going to click on default and rename it to idle. We're going to add a new one, click on it and rename it to hurt. And one more, rename it to walk. Find your resources on the left hand side. Hopefully you've got some good ones or you chose the same as me to follow along. And I'm going to look for the ones that say walk. I'm going to click on the first PNG. I'm going to hold down shift and click on the last PNG and drag it over. I'm going to do the same thing with idle. Click, shift, click, drag, and hurt. Click, shift, click, drag. And that gives us all of our different animations for these three different animations of the character. And it's a little large, so let's resize it. So with animated 2D sprite highlighted, we're going to go to transform and we're going to go on scale and say 0.2, enter. And that'll downsize it. That's perfect. Let's click on player and let's lock these layers under player. This is always a good thing to do because right now if you click on something in here and drag it, you might be dragging them separately instead of as a group. So with player highlighted, click on this little button here, group selected. Now they're grouped. Now you have to select over here instead of here. You can always drag and drop and it won't drag things individually. It will grab them as a group unless you choose them individually over here. So that's a good thing to have on. Now let's fix this. Now that we have the image here, let's fix this warning that's giving us this node has no shape. So we need to add a collide or a collision. So with player highlighted, click the add node and let's type in collision. And we want a collision shape 2D, double click to add that. And that should be of the, yep, so that's a parent. Make sure you don't click on animated sprite 2D and add that node. You want the node to be under the player, okay? Not under animated sprite. So make sure your window over here looks like mine. And click on collision 2D shape and zoom in. And we want to say shape over here on the right. We want to take it from empty to a new rectangle, right? So that's resets it. So empty, if I went too fast, it's just empty and I went down to new rectangle and I click that. So let's reshape this. And if we want to do it symmetrical, you can hold down option and drag this little thing and it'll do it with symmetry. But I don't want to do that. I want to go all the way down to here and then I want to go over to here. Let's not do the hurt. Let's do this on let's do idle or walk. Yeah, pick walk. So on walk we're going to resize this collision shape. So just make it to the size of your character. Looks good to me. Let's save this as player, click enter, and let's run this scene. Let's see what happens. Okay, we got a good character in there. And so this guy should be animated. So let's look back at our animation here with animated sprite 2D clicked on. We need to set a default animation, and we want that to be idle. So highlight idle and then click autoplay on load, and that will now be set to our default animation. Let's click play and watch it play before we start the scene. There it is, it's moving around. It looks a little slow, so on animated sprite, I'm gonna come over here under animation, speed scale, and I'm just gonna double it. I'm gonna hit 2. That looks a little better. So now let's play our scene and see if it's moving. Yep, we've got movement. Perfect. Let's add a script. So under player, add a script. Let's leave all this default and just click create. And we're going to be working under the process function with the delta. So let's do some basic movements. If you watched my movement tutorial before, we're going to do it a little different this time. So let's add some variables. Let's say var velocity equals, this will be the same as I did before. Oops, I'm gonna do dot 0 again. The other one I'm going to add, I want the variable to show up in the inspector over here when we're on player. So I'm gonna say at export, and then I'm gonna say var speed equals 350. Now, when and let's save that. Let's make sure we put pass in here so it'll show up on the right. If you have something blank here, you're going to get an error if you don't have any actual programming. You know, if I delete this and I have nothing there, it's going to throw an error. So pass just means this is going to be blank, and that's okay. So let's leave that there for now. Click save and click on the player, and then over here now you see speed. Perfect. So now we can control the speed from here instead of having to come back into our code and changing it here, which we could, 300, and save. That changes to 300. But you can override it over here now very easily. And you could do another one if you wanted. Like you could put at export in front of velocity, at export, and save, and you should see, oh, you gotta put var, I erase var, click save, and now we have velocity under here as well. We don't want that though, we don't need that for velocity. We just need plain old variable. So that's a cool trick. If you want your variables to show up in your inspector window, just prefix it with at export. I'm gonna go back to 350. And so let's start working on this process. Let's get the movements going. So let's say velocity, because right now velocity is equal to 0, 0. X is 0, Y is 0. Let's say velocity is equal to, and we need to get our arrow keys. We're just going to use our arrow keys, and this is going to give us our velocity. Which way are we facing? So let's say input dot get underscore vector, and then we're going to give it a list of left, right, up, and down. And this function, it has to go in that order. The arguments need to be left, right, up, and down. So let's say left, right, up, down. So you want UI left, UI right, UI up, UI down. And then we can take this velocity that we're getting from the keys, and we could say position plus equals the velocity times the speed times the delta. And that should give us, if we run our scene, that should give us movement. Perfect. We still only have the same animation. We'll fix that in a minute. So with the speed, one other thing we can do here, let me go back. If you notice, we can go out of the window. That's kind of annoying. So let's fix that. Let's do var screen size equals a vector 2. And let's come up to project, and let's go to project settings and display window. And I'm 1152 by 648. You can make this whatever you want, but just remember whatever it is. So 1152 by 648, 1152 by 648. And then we come over here and we're gonna do position. Let's see, is it position? Yeah, position dot x. We're going to make that equal to a clamp function. And this is going to basically clamp our x at a minimum and maximum, okay? So we do clamp, and then we want to, what do we want to clamp? So we want to clamp position x. We want to clamp it from 0 to the max screen width, which is 1152. So we can just say screen size.x, okay? And we can run that real quick just to show you. Let's see if I got everything right. So if we go left and right, okay, right? Because 0 is right here. This is, whoa, this is 0, 0. We didn't do y yet, we only did x. So 0, 0 is here. So this is 0x. And if we come all the way over here, the max now is 1152. So we stop there. So let's do the same thing for y. Position.y is equal to clamp, and we're going to say position.y, comma 0, comma screen size.y. And we could have just put the screen size here. We could have just said 1152. And that would have worked the same, but we want to be better programmers than that, so we're going to use variables. And we run it again. Now when we go up, we stop there. And when we go down, we stop there. Perfect. So now let's add the animation to the character. We are currently animated. You can see he's moving, but he's an idle. We want to switch that to walk when we start moving forward. We want it to go from the idle animation to the walk animation. So let's say if velocity.length is greater than 0, we're going to use animated 2D sprite dot animation, and we're going to say is equal to walk. And this has to be whatever you set up in your animation. So if you name this run, then it needs to be run. So I name mine walk, and we're going to keep it walk. And then when we're not moving, we're going to say else $ animated 2D sprite dot animation is equal to idle again. Okay, let's save this and run it, see if it works. And I'm using my arrow keys to move around, and you can see I'm idle and then I'm walking. Perfect, looks great. So now what we want to do is when he's walking to the left of the screen, he's walking backwards. We want to change that. We want to flip the animation so it looks like he's walking to the left and not walking backwards. So let's do another if statement. If velocity dot, let's see, let's just do if velocity is greater than, no, let's do if velocity is not equal to 0, which means he's walking, because if he's got a velocity, it would be 1 or -1, and this is 0, so this is the opposite. So if velocity is not equal to 0, this is what we want to do. We want to flip the animation. So we're going to do $ animated sprite 2D again, and we're going to say dot flip, and we're looking for this one, flip underscore H. You can click on that. That's perfect. And then we're going to say if that's equal to velocity dot x greater than, no, less than. Let's do less than 0, right? Okay, because when we're walking on the screen, if we go to the right, it's going to say 1. If we go to the left, it's going to say -1. So if we're less than 0, we're negative, and that means we're going to flip. Okay, this equals to a true statement, and if this is true, we flip the sprite. So let's run it, and I'm getting an error. Where is the error? Vector 2. Where is that at? If velocity dot x, sorry about that. If velocity dot x is not equal to 0. Let's go ahead and run that. There we go. He flips. All right. So let's break this down a little bit and see if I can help you understand it. Let's do a print statement, and let's print out velocity.x. Okay, let's see what that does. So as we walk to the right, you can see on over here it's 0. Okay, and we said if velocity.x is not 0, right? It's not 0. When I move, there it is, -1 and 1, so it's not 0. We want to flip the animation if this is true. We could replace this for true. I'll do that in a minute. But so if this is true, flip the animation. And what is this? Velocity x is less than 0. So if we go to the left, it's -1. So that's now true. So if we say true and run it, it's always true. So as soon as you move, it's going to flip left. Because the first time you walk left, it says, oh, that's true, and we'll flip left. That's why we use the true and false statement here, this Boolean statement, to say when we're walking left, flip it. When we're walking right, don't flip it. And then the other thing I wanted to show you here is the dot length. So let's go velocity dot length, and let's see what this does. And this is a great trick. I use print a lot to figure out what's going on in my code, problem solving, looking for errors, to see what is actually happening in the code. This is a great little trick. So let's go ahead and click play again. And of course, we're not moving, so we're at 0, left, and right, right? So that's just 1 and 1 this time, because dot length is just telling you, yep, we're moving in a direction. So when we use it up here, dot length, if it's greater than 0, we're walking, right? Because we're walking in both directions. So both directions is greater than 0. So that way we're getting the animate. And I think that's going to be it. If you got any questions, which I'm sure you do, leave them in the comments. What I would do if I was you, I would come up here and I would say add a new scene, and I would do all of that again 4 or 5 times, right? Get another character if you want, create a different kind of character, but I would come in here and I would say add, and I would do area 2D, and I would rename this one to player 2, and I would just break down everything we just did. Try not to look at what we did. Keep this one hidden. Start fresh with a new script and do it 2 or 3 times and really drive it into your head and get it down so that you remember it and we can move on. And the more we pick up on, the more we can build on our game, which we will start as soon as we get the basics out of the way. I really want to make sure everybody understands the basics before we move on. And that's it. So please like if you like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when new tutorials or lessons are out. And we'll see you next time.